Why do you give so much of yourself to people who barely notice your absence? Why do you smile when your soul is screaming, agree when every fiber of your being wants to rebel, and make yourself smaller so others can feel bigger? Today, we're going to explore something most will never dare to examine: the hidden architecture of personal power that Machiavelli understood, that Jung mapped in the depths of the psyche, and that Nietzsche proclaimed as the birthright of those brave enough to become who they truly are. If you're ready to stop being a background character in your own life, hit that like button and subscribe, because by the end of this video, you'll become a different person. So stay until the end. You wake up every morning carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations. Your mother's disappointment, your partner's needs, your boss's demands, your friend's judgments. You've become a masterpiece of accommodation, a living, breathing yes to every request, every criticism, every subtle manipulation that comes your way. But here's what no one tells you about this exhausting dance of approval seeking. You're not just tired, you're disappearing. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." But what happens when even you have forgotten what you really are? What happens when the mask becomes so perfectly fitted that you can no longer find the face beneath? This is the silent epidemic of our time. Not depression, not anxiety, but the complete erasure of the authentic self in service of an impossible dream, being loved by everyone, accepted by all, needed by those who will never truly see you. You give your energy freely, like water poured into broken vessels, wondering why you always feel empty. You make yourself available to every emotional emergency, every crisis, every person who has learned that you will always answer, always help, always sacrifice your own peace for their comfort. And what do you get in return? The hollow satisfaction of being nice, the bitter reward of being reliable, the exhausting prize of being the person others call when they need something, but never when they're celebrating. Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to navigate the world. But when the persona becomes our prison, when we can no longer remove it even in solitude, we enter a state of psychological bankruptcy. We become strangers to our own desires, our own boundaries, our own sacred no. The pain you feel isn't weakness. It's your soul's rebellion against a life that no longer belongs to you. It's the psyche's desperate attempt to reclaim what has been given away so freely that nothing remains for the self. This is where your journey begins, not with changing others, but with the radical act of remembering who you are beneath the layers of learned helplessness and compulsive giving. From the moment you drew your first breath, you were being programmed, not maliciously, but systematically. Your parents, terrified of raising a difficult child, rewarded your compliance and punished your authentic expression. Your teachers praised your obedience and ignored your creativity. Your peers accepted you when you mirrored their interests and rejected you when you dared to be different. And so you learned the most destructive lesson a human can learn. Your worth is conditional. Nietzsche saw this clearly when he wrote about the herd mentality, the way society creates docile, predictable beings who mistake their chains for jewelry, their cages for comfort zones. You were taught to be afraid of your own power, suspicious of your own desires, ashamed of your own needs. But here's what the conditioning couldn't touch: your psychic energy. Jung understood that each person possesses a finite but renewable source of life force, what he called libido, not in the sexual sense, but as pure psychological energy. This energy is your birthright, your fuel, your most precious resource. Yet look how you spend it. You scatter it like coins thrown to beggars, dispersing your power so widely that nothing remains for your own growth, your own dreams, your own magnificent becoming. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you leak energy. Every time you smile through your pain to make others comfortable, you hemorrhage power. Every time you minimize your achievements, downplay your intelligence, or apologize for taking up space, you hand over pieces of your soul to people who never asked for them and don't know what to do with them. This is the great tragedy. You've been taught that your value lies in your usefulness to others, when your true power lies in your complete presence to yourself. Machiavelli understood that power isn't taken, it's claimed by those who recognize their own sovereignty. But first, you must see the invisible threads that bind you, the guilt that activates when you consider your own needs, the fear that rises when you imagine disappointing someone, the shame that floods your system when you think about putting yourself first. These are not natural emotions. They are installed responses, psychological software written by people who needed you small to feel big, who needed you weak to feel strong, who needed you lost to feel found. The awareness begins here, recognizing that your impulse to give everything away isn't love, it's programming. Your need to be needed isn't connection, it's addiction. Your fear of being alone isn't social anxiety. It's the terror of meeting the person you've abandoned most completely, yourself. There comes a moment in every awakening when you must do the unthinkable. You must disappear, not physically but energetically. You must pull back the scattered pieces of yourself that have been feeding everyone else's dreams while your own soul starved in silence. This is what Jung called the withdrawal of projections. The deliberate act of stopping the unconscious process of giving others your power, your attention, your life force. It is perhaps the most difficult thing a conditioned person can do because it requires you to disappoint people. It requires you to let others face their own emptiness without rushing to fill it. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But he understood something even deeper. It is better to be respected than needed if you cannot be both. When you make yourself constantly available, you become like air, essential but invisible, taken for granted, never truly valued. The withdrawal begins with small acts of sovereignty. You don't respond to that text immediately. You don't explain your whereabouts. You don't justify your choices or apologize for your preferences. You begin to cultivate what spiritual traditions call noble silence, the art of holding your energy instead of spilling it carelessly into every conversation, every conflict, every crisis that was never yours to solve. This isn't cruelty. This is conservation of the sacred. Every master of personal power understands this principle. Your presence must become precious because it is rare, not because it is desperate. Watch what happens when you step back. Watch how some people become angry, confused, even vindictive when they can no longer access you at will. This is not about you. It is about their unresolved relationship with their own inner void. You are filling a space that was never yours to fill. But also watch how others begin to approach you differently. How they speak more carefully, listen more attentively, respect your time because they sense its value. How they stop treating you like an emotional dumping ground and start treating you like a person with your own depth, your own mystery, your own important inner life. Nietzsche spoke of amor fati, love of fate, love of your own path. But you cannot love your fate if you're too busy living everyone else's. You cannot hear your own calling if you're constantly responding to everyone else's. In the silence, in the space, in the conscious unavailability, something miraculous begins to happen. You start to remember who you are. The desires that have been buried under decades of accommodation begin to surface. The dreams that were sacrificed for other people's comfort begin to stir again. The voice that was silenced by the need to please begins to whisper, then speak, then sing your true name. This is not isolation, this is incubation, this is not abandonment, this is return. You are not withdrawing from life, you are withdrawing into life, your life, perhaps for the first time. In the crucible of conscious solitude, something extraordinary begins to emerge. The person you were meant to be before the world convinced you to be someone else. This is not improvement. This is revelation. This is not change. This is remembering. Jung called this process individuation, the psychological journey toward wholeness, toward the integration of all aspects of the self, including the parts you've been taught to hide, deny, or be ashamed of. Your anger, your selfishness, your need for recognition, your desire for power. These are not flaws to be eliminated, but energies to be understood, owned, and channeled. When you stop giving your power away, it doesn't disappear, it accumulates. Like a river that has been flowing in 100 different directions suddenly being channeled into one mighty current, your psychic energy begins to consolidate, to intensify, to become a force that others can feel even before you speak. This is what Machiavelli meant by true power, not the ability to control others, but the mastery of yourself. Not manipulation, but magnetism. Not forcing your will upon the world, but aligning so completely with your authentic nature that the world naturally responds to your presence. People begin to notice something different about you. They can't name it, but they feel it. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You don't chase attention, but somehow command it. You don't seek approval, but receive respect. You don't explain yourself, but somehow everyone understands you perfectly. This is the alchemy. When you stop leaking energy through the 1,000 small compromises of inauthentic living, that energy transforms into presence. When you stop scattering your attention across everyone else's dramas, your focus becomes laser sharp on what actually matters to you. When you stop saying yes to everything, your rare yeses become precious gifts that people treasure. Nietzsche wrote, "What does not destroy me makes me stronger." But the deeper truth is this: what you no longer give away freely becomes part of your unshakable foundation. Every boundary you set, every no you honor, every moment you choose your own company over compromise, these become the building blocks of an inner fortress that no one can breach without your permission. You discover that you don't need to be impressive to be magnetic. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need to be useful to be valuable. You simply need to be real, to be present, to be unapologetically yourself in a world that has forgotten how rare and beautiful that is. This is when people begin to bend, not because you manipulate them, but because authenticity is so magnetic that it naturally draws others into its orbit. They want what you have, the peace that comes from self-acceptance, the strength that flows from inner alignment, the quiet confidence that needs no external validation to know its own worth. So I want to leave you with a question that will either change everything or change nothing, depending on how deeply you allow it to penetrate your consciousness. What would your life look like if you loved yourself as much as you love the people you've been trying so hard to please? Sit with that for a moment. Really sit with it. What would change if you gave yourself the same patience you give to others' mistakes? The same forgiveness you extend to their failures, the same unconditional acceptance you offer to their flaws? What would happen if you honored your own needs with the same urgency you bring to everyone else's crises? If you protected your energy with the same fierceness you use to defend others' feelings? If you spoke to yourself with the same kindness you show to strangers on their worst days? This is not selfishness. This is self-reverence. This is not narcissism. This is the radical act of treating yourself like someone you love because you are someone worth loving. Jung understood that we cannot give what we do not have. You cannot offer genuine love to others if you withhold it from yourself. You cannot create healthy relationships if your primary relationship, the one with your own soul, is built on criticism, neglect, and conditional acceptance. The people who truly bend toward your will, who naturally want to please you, support you, and be in your presence, these are not people you manipulate or control. These are people who recognize something rare when they see it, a human being who has made peace with themselves. Machiavelli's greatest insight was not about conquering others, but about conquering the chaos within yourself. When you master your own inner kingdom, When you can sit alone without desperation, make decisions without external validation, and love without losing yourself. You become magnetic not through force, but through freedom. You stop chasing people who don't choose you, because you have chosen yourself so completely that their rejection cannot diminish you. You stop seeking approval from others, because you have given yourself the approval you've been seeking everywhere else. You stop trying to prove your worth, because you have finally accepted it as a given, not a gift to be earned. This is the ultimate power, needing nothing from others except what they freely choose to give. Wanting connection, but not requiring it. Appreciating love, but not depending on it for your sense of self. When you reach this place, this inner sanctuary where you are enough for yourself, you become irresistible, not because you try to be, but because you have stopped trying. You become magnetic not because you need others, but because you are so full of your own presence that others naturally want to be part of your world. The question remains, will you love yourself enough to begin? Understanding is not transformation. Insight is not integration. You can watch 1,000 videos about personal power, read every book on authenticity, and still wake up tomorrow giving your energy away to the first person who asks for it. The gap between knowing and becoming is where most people spend their entire lives. So let me give you something practical, something you can begin today, in this moment, as you sit wherever you are. Start saying no to one thing that doesn't serve you. Just one. Not dramatically, not with explanation or apology, but clearly and completely. Feel what happens in your body when you honor your own boundary. Notice the guilt that rises, the fear that whispers you're being selfish. Breathe through it. This is your conditioning dying, and it won't go quietly. The next step is harder. Stop explaining yourself. When someone asks why you can't attend their event, why you didn't respond immediately to their message, why you've chosen to spend your evening alone instead of accommodating their plans, simply say, "That doesn't work for me." Period. No justifications, no elaborate stories, no softening the truth with unnecessary kindness. Your no is complete without their understanding. Then comes the deepest practice. Learn to be alone with yourself without distraction. Put away your phone, turn off the television, silence the music, and sit in the sacred space of your own company. At first, this will feel unbearable. You'll want to reach for something, anything, to fill the silence. Don't. This restlessness is not emptiness. It's the return of your authentic self, knocking on the door of consciousness after years of exile. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming requires practice. It requires daily acts of loyalty to your own soul. It requires choosing your own path even when others don't understand it, especially when others don't understand it. Each time you choose yourself over others' expectations, you build psychic muscle. Each time you sit with your own thoughts instead of drowning them in others' opinions, you strengthen your inner foundation. Each time you walk away from what doesn't serve you instead of forcing yourself to endure it, you teach the universe that you are not available for mediocrity. This is how you build an aura so powerful it bends people to your will. Not through manipulation, but through the magnetic force of someone who knows their own worth. Not through games or tactics, but through the simple, revolutionary act of being completely, unapologetically yourself. Machiavelli wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." But he missed the deeper truth that Nietzsche and Jung both understood. The most powerful people are neither loved nor feared, but respected. Respected because they respect themselves so completely that others have no choice but to follow suit. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You don't need to have it all figured out. You simply need to take the first step away from who you've been toward who you're becoming. The person who lives in alignment with their deepest truth. The person who says yes to themselves as often as they say yes to others. The person who understands that their presence is a gift, not a given. The question that brought you here, how to build power that bends others to your will, has been answered, but not in the way you expected. The will you must bend is your own. The person you must master is yourself. The power you seek has been within you all along, waiting for the moment you stop giving it away and start claiming it as your birthright. That moment is now. That person is you. That life is waiting. Begin. If this video awakened something in you, if you recognized yourself in these words, then your journey has already begun. Subscribe not just to this channel, but to your own transformation. Hit that notification bell not just for more content, but as a reminder that you are committed to becoming who you truly are. Share this with someone who needs to remember their own power, but more importantly, share it with yourself every time you forget. The world needs fewer people pleasers and more people who are pleased with themselves. The world needs fewer energy givers and more energy conservers. The world needs fewer followers and more individuals who have the courage to walk their own path. Which one will you choose to be?